Well, it's good to be back with you again here at Christ Table for another Bible study today. So grateful that you are here with us. We are in the middle of this study on Suit Up, and this is actually our final week. You can always go back and review all of the previous ones, but I'm glad that you're here today, and hopefully you'll stay with us for the rest of the week and maybe even find out a little bit more about Christ Table. That would be absolutely incredible. You can find out more about us by visiting that website right there, www.christtable.today. And you can sign up for our email list there. If you give to Christ Table, we have these boxes that we send in the mail to you every couple of months with a ton of spiritual resources, and would love to be a part of your spiritual journey. If you want to be a part of this Bible study as well, you can go to go.christtable.today/suitup, and right there is a PDF that will give you the entire reading list for the rest of this Bible study. Now, a couple of other things that I want to remind you of, though, is if you are in Northeastern Ohio, we have an in-person gathering that's coming up in a little less than 2 weeks. We had one yesterday. Here was was incredible. Really, really, really enjoyed it. An absolutely great time together. So would love to have you be a part of that. Actually, this is not the slide for that. This is the slide for that. So April 10th, 11 a.m. would love to have you there and be a part of that. Would also love to have you be a part of our Holy Envy Bible study. I think I've got the book right here. Yeah, this little book right here. We're walking through this book. You can be a part of that by just really signing online there. Go.christtable.today/discuss on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. We would love to have you be a part of that as well. Then, like I said, the in-person gathering, and today we are in Psalm 37, 23, and 24. So fun to see everybody sign on. Good morning, Therese. Good morning, Debbie. Good morning, Garrett. I had to take a break from Facebook to come and do this. What an evening last night, and what a conversation now going on today about abuse, about appropriateness, about insults, about comedy, about what's appropriate behavior, what's not appropriate behavior, what's appropriate response, what's not appropriate response, and none of that has to do with today's Bible study. And so, why don't we just go ahead and jump into Psalm 37, verses 23 and 24. So let's dig in. When we come to the book of Psalm, one of the things that we have to remember is the book of Psalm and the book of Proverbs are not what I would necessarily call hard doctrine books. They are the book of Songs. The book of Proverbs is wise sayings, wisdom, such as you might get in the middle of a fortune cookie when you open it up. And that's not to say that they are not spiritually centered. It's not to say that they're not theological, but the thing that we have to remember is they're not written in order to be a doctrine textbook. They're written in order to be music, to be good advice, to tell you how the world works most of the time. And so when we come to today's passage in Psalm chapter 37, what we're seeing here is a conversation about wickedness, about people who are wicked. Now, I understand that term is maybe a little bit old, dated. It sounds very religious to say that someone is wicked or someone is doing wicked things. You imagine like Salem witch trials, or you imagine a preacher pounding a pulpit, screaming at those who are there in attendance to get their life right. But the truth of the matter is, no matter what words you use, there's wickedness. There are people who act in wicked ways. There are people who do things that are just utterly deplorable and live in a way that is most of the times utterly deplorable. Now, I want to kind of full stop though and say that I don't believe that any human being is fully wicked, is fully godless, is fully unable to be affected by the love and the strength and the power of God. Even a this might cause some fury, but even a Putin, even a Hitler figure, and maybe you have one of those in your life. I still hold out hope that at the core, at the deepest part of all of humanity, there's still something of God that is there, no matter how buried, no matter how ignored. There is a flame, a light that is there that I have to believe can be ignited into something beautiful and something wonderful. But we all know that there are certain people and certain individuals in the world where that light is so small and so hidden that it seems as though the person is 99.99999% repeating evil, wicked, awful. You know these people. Psalm 37 has been talking about those people. So when we get to our study passage today, Psalm 37 verses 23 and 24, what we've been seeing is this conversation about the wicked and the fate of the wicked, or the outcomes for them. And essentially, if I were to boil it all down, the passage is saying this, that the wicked have their deserved fate, that the world tends to manage itself in the end in order to give the return that is deserved on what is sown by people who are evil. Putin's day will come for him. It already has in many ways, but this won't be the end of it. He will not in the end come out on top of Ukraine or on life. There will be those who will, in small and in large ways, make him pay. Just as Hitler's day came for him. In fact, Hitler short-circuited it, but only because that day was coming for him as well. And then for the people in your life who act in wicked and deplorable, sinful and evil ways, their fate, their recompense, the reaping of what they have sown, will come for them if it has not already. The Bible declares that in the end, all things will be set straight, if not in this life, in the next one. So Psalm 37 essentially says up until this point that the wicked have their deserved fate. But what it's going to now turn to say is, but blessings add up for those who are faithful. And I love that it doesn't necessarily say that it's okay for people to act this way. It doesn't necessarily say that just because that day doesn't come immediately, that it's not going to come. I love that what it does, though, is it kind of just sits aside the wicked and their journey, and then chooses to focus on you. Chooses to focus on those who live well in this life. Now, there's a part of me that says, no. I want to know. I want to know that person who's done that to me. I want to know that person who's acted in a completely and utterly inhuman, deplorable kind of way is going to have their day come. And I want to know it's going to come soon. And I want to know that it's going to be swift and it's going to be furious. And I want to know that it's going to meet or exceed that in which they gave out, because they have caused so much pain to me, to others, to the world. There's a part of me that says that, but there's maddeningly, there's a sense in the Bible where God essentially says it's not in your hands. It's not for you to determine what is right and what is wrong, what is deserved, what is undeserved, what discipline comes, and what grace and mercy come. So the psalmist here in the song essentially says, you know what? The wicked are going to have their deserved fate, but you really need to set that aside. It's not in your hands. But what is in your hands is how you live your life, is what you do. I don't know that Putin sees himself as Hitler. I don't know that Hitler saw himself as Hitler. There's a danger that if we're always looking at everybody else, that we may actually be the deplorable one. We may actually be the wicked one. How tragic. How tragic that you may be looking at everybody else in your life thinking that they are the ones who are wicked, who are deserving of reaping what they've sown, but it's actually you. Me. So I think that Psalms is powerful in that Psalm and Proverbs give us an idea to know which side we're on, the wicked or the blessed, the righteous. And one of the key ways is that blessings will add up for those who are faithful. So are you receiving curse or are you receiving blessing? Now, that's not to say that if you look at your life and all you're receiving is suffering, is not to say, let me say right here, that you aren't blessed or you aren't being faithful. Not in the least. But I think it's worth taking a look. Are you able to see blessings in your life even in the midst of suffering? How do you respond in certain situations when someone comes at you with a ill-timed and tasteless joke, as every comedian does? It's what comedy is, right? What's your response like? It says more about you than it does the joke and how our response comes. And it says more about you in how you respond to suffering, to wickedness, than it does the wickedness. I think that's how you can tell where you are in your mental, emotional, and especially spiritual health. For the faithful, though, God promises that blessings will add up, not be taken away. And so, yeah, here we are. Finally, how far in? 12 minutes in. We're still early, all the time in the world. Verse 23, the Lord directs the steps of the godly. He delights in every detail of their lives. Though they stumble, they will never fall. But the Lord holds them by the hand. Now this is this is a pretty great promise. The Lord directs the steps of the godly. The Bible talks a lot about this idea of a road, of a path, of seeing your life as though you are on a journey. And you are. Where's that journey heading? But also who's walking alongside you on that journey. The Bible multiple times encourages us that the Lord directs the steps of the godly. I for many years was very concerned about knowing God's will. I read book after book after book about knowing God's will. What am I supposed to do with my life? What's God's will for me? How am I supposed to know whether I'm on the right path or I'm on the wrong path? And at some point it dawned on me through something a mentor, someone else said, that rather than knowing God's will, just know God well. Because the better you know God, the closer you're going to be to God, which means that then the verses like this one come into play, that the Lord directs the steps of the godly. So if you want the Lord to direct your steps, just make sure that you are as godly as you're able to be. And God delights in every detail of your life. He loves walking alongside of you. The benefit of this is that even when you're, whenever you walk in Israel, there are lots of different types of ground that you're going to walk on. Some of it's sand, some of it's rocky, some of it's boulders. Sometimes it's beautiful through shade and through these wonderful canopies of luscious growth, and other times it's just barren desert for miles and miles and miles. There are going to be moments in your life where you're walking through luscious overgrowth, where everything is perfect and everything is wonderful. And there are going to be moments where you're walking through barren desert. No matter what you're walking through, the best outcome isn't that you don't have to take the journey. What is life sitting still? The best outcome is that you're taking the journey with a great guide and somebody who's going to be there walking it alongside of you. I mean, isn't that what we want? Most of us, we would rather avoid the rocky roads in life, right? But sometimes you can. And if you can't avoid the rocky road in life, what do you want? Well, you want somebody to be alongside you along the way for comfort, for companionship, for assistance. You may not you may not have who you want to join you in that journey that you're walking through. You know, when you get in that rocky terrain, you may wish you had a spouse, or you may wish you had a spouse who was worth something in those moments. You may wish your kids were able to be there with you, or that your mother or grandmother or grandfather or father, someone whom in your life was super impactful, is still around to help be there with you along the way. You may not have who you want or what you want in those moments where you're treading a super difficult path, but you have God. Now I don't want to say, oh, you should be okay then. It's all right that no one's there with you. You've just got God. I don't want to say that, but I do want to say it's not as though you don't have. It's not as though you don't have anything. It's not as though you are alone. Because the Lord directs the steps of the godly. He delights, or it makes him happy, joyful in every detail of your life. You're not bothering God. When you stub your toe, when you get a thorn, when you're not sure whether you should turn left or right, or go here or there, or do this or that, you're not bothering God. He loves it. God loves it, this verse says, whenever you take the details of your lives to him. There aren't many people in the world who can handle your details at their fullest, right? We oftentimes hold back. We don't want to be overbearing. We don't want to give someone too much. We're afraid that if we tell our spouse or our friend or our pastor or our coworker everything that we're dealing with, if we fully tell them about the journey that we're on, that they're going to abandon us. And God says, I'm not going to abandon you for that. I love the depth of a relationship where you can tell me every detail. And even though you stumble, you'll never fall, for the Lord holds him by the hand. That to me is powerful. Though you might stumble along the way, you're never going to fully fall away from God, fall away from your faith, fall away from whatever that fear may be for you about if you wreck your life. God's got you. He's holding you by the hand. I love that this verse seems to remind us that whenever you or I are knocked down by your enemies, and we've all got them, people who have made themselves our enemy, or we've made them our enemy, right? We've got them. Whenever you are knocked down, though, by your enemies or just simply by circumstances, what that second verse, verse 24 says is that God promises to plant your feet again. God promises to, that's why he has your hand. He's pulling you back up to set your feet on the ground again so that you can continue to move forward. You know, the danger in hiking, taking a long journey alone, is that you'll stumble, fall, harm yourself, not be able to get back up and lay there and die. God says spiritually, and I think we can also say here physically, God promises that you're never alone, that he'll always be there to pick you up and to set your feet firm again and to help you move forward. Now you might say, well, I've got this thing that I'm facing that this is literally life or death. I could die. Are you saying to me that God says this thing isn't going to take my life, that this thing isn't going to keep me down? I guess I'd say yes and no. This sounds like a cop-out, but it's really not. What God promises and what the Bible teaches us is that we can't be limited by the span of the years of our life. That the universe, that the world, that time is much bigger than your birth date and your death date. For a Christian, we don't see or believe in a death date in the same way that oftentimes the rest of the world sees it. It's simply a step on the journey to a continuation into an eternity spent with God. And I think the reminder here in verses 23 and 24 is you are already in that eternity with God. You're already walking alongside of him, so why not live in a godly way rather than in a wicked way? He's already there alongside of you, and whatever may come, whatever may happen on the road ahead for you, your feet are firmly planted in God for an eternity. There are going to be bumps and bruises, and death is coming for all of us at some point, someday. This doesn't erase the promises of this passage, because your journey with Jesus will continue. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Looking forward to being back with you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, though, happy reading.